Hey everyone, Dr. Frunky here with a fun new knife console for you. In front of us is the Reeve Knives Inkosi. I wanted to go ahead and thank my buddy Taylor for sending these along. Taylor lives here in town with me and owns both variants of the Small Inkosi, the drop point blade and the Insingo blade. Try saying Insingo Inkosi 10 times fast. That's a good tongue twister. But I'm very thankful to him for bringing me these knives because it actually opened my eyes to the awesomeness that is the Inkosi. So what is the Inkosi? It is the Zulu word for chief, but in terms of these knives, it is the evolution of the Sebenza model. The Sebenza became the Sebenza 21, which then became the Sebenza 25. But a few years into the production of the 25, they introduced this knife, actually, the Small Inkosi. This was the first variant that was available of the Inkosi model. And it brought a few upgrades. So the 25, as opposed to the 21, had the thicker hollow grind. It had the non-bushing pivot, it had the ceramic ball interface, and it had the different milling on the handle. The Inkosi introduced a couple more upgrades in the sense that there are larger phosphor bronze washers. There is a non-pinned stop pin going on right here, and it came in this smaller size. There was never a small Sebenza 25. This basically was the small Sebenza 25, and in fact, this is smaller even than the Sebenza 21, the small Sebenza 21. That one is a 3-inch blade. This is 2.75 inches. So a lot of upgrades going on right there, and so it's nice to see this evolution. And honestly, this is my favorite one of the 3 Sebenza models because of the way that it looks and because of the upgrades that it has, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I have both of the blade variants here. Let's go ahead and look at the objective numbers going on with this knife. As I mentioned before, the blade length is right at about 2.75 inches. Back to the handle, you're looking a little bit more than that, maybe 2.9 inches. Back to the pivot is 3 1/4. Overall length, you're looking at about 6.65 inches, something like that, of a rather small and compact knife. I'll go ahead and bring out another couple of knives for a size comparison here. Here is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which is considerably larger. And then here is the large Inkosi. This is my personal knife. I would love to see a knife come out in between the small Inkosi and the large Inkosi. I feel like it's just begging for a knife in between. This is at 2.75 and then this is at 3.6 inches. So somewhere in the 3.2, 3.3 inch range I think would be spectacular. A lot of people have been asking for that for a long time. Whether they're going to release that someday or not remains to be seen. But these are both very small knives, so if you're into small knives, it's certainly something to consider. Very, very well made knives in this size category, but again, smaller even than the Sebenza 21 that's small. Let's go ahead and break these knives down anatomically. Up front is that 2.75 inch blade of CPM S35VN. A lot of people have complained that S35VN is too basic to be on these expensive knives, and these are quite expensive knives. These come in at about $375 for a brand new version of this, so rather expensive. If you add an inlay, you're looking at maybe up to $100 more, and then when you get to the large with inlays, this one was $575 or $545 new, so quite expensive considering the materials of titanium and S35VN. Now people complain about that, but on a Reeve knife, CPM S35VN carries a lot more meaning. Reeve literally developed S35VN with crucible powdered metallurgy, and it's very special because if anyone is going to do that steel justice, it's going to be Reeve knives. Now they've done, as I mentioned before, the thicker hollow grind. They use a larger diameter wheel, so it is still hollow ground, but it's thicker so that the blade remains much more strong. I love the standard drop point shape. To me, this is a very classic blade shape. It's got the standard Reeve knives stonewash finish, which I absolutely adore. This is really one of the best stonewashes in the industry. It hides wear very well. Even though this knife has been EDC'd and has a significant amount of scratches on the blade, maybe you can see it there, it hides it quite well in most light angles. The Insingo style blade, there I go trying to mess that up. The Insingo style blade is a nice sheep's foot shape. Very, very friendly for everyday carry and use. Most of our cutting tasks, especially for these smaller knives, are going to be slicing tasks like opening boxes, opening letters, and things like that. And so this full belly and this sheep's foot style blade is going to work very well. I happen to really enjoy sheep's foot style blades because they're safer for me. Sometimes I have to use knives against the skin to remove things like wristbands and even gowns and things like that. And so it's nice to feel that little bit of safety with that sheep's foot style, whereas the tip on this one, if you're trying to get underneath something, is much closer to the skin. You might risk cutting somebody a little bit more like that. I actually did a poll on my Instagram about which blade shape people prefer, and it was a split 50-50 down the middle. 50% of y'all like this one and 50% of you like this one. So very interesting there. Why don't you comment down below which blade shape you like and why? My preference is the drop point, but I'll just leave it at that. It opens by the standard Sebenza thumb studs here. I'm not a big fan of the blue. As you can see, that blue just wears off immediately and looks like a nipple, so that just bothers me. I prefer the all silver thumb lugs. But it is a very smooth action, and that is what actually caught me off guard. So I'll go ahead and talk about the pivot. It's the non-bushing pivot, but the action is quite smooth. People describe this as hydraulic, and I feel it on this one. This one is so much smoother than my 25 ever was that I was really impressed. You can actually tune it so that it's flickable. And something that's very interesting on this knife is if you look at the blade, a little bit of the tang sticks up above the handle right there. While some people might get annoyed by that design, what you can actually do, if I can just do it right, is front flip the knife. It's hard to do at this angle. Normally I can do it from normal position. Of course I'm going to screw it up on the video, but you can front flick this knife. I'm having trouble because of the angle here. There we go, I got it. So it does work if you get on there quite right. Very, very South African with that mode right there. I don't think that it's intended to work like that. It doesn't work quite as well for the full-size Inkosi. You can do it, but it's not quite as good. The tab just sticks up a little bit farther on the smaller one, and I do really like that. It adds to the fidget factor of the knife. The pivot, as I mentioned, is non-bushing. It does have these much larger washers, so it captures a lot more grease on the inside, and these are captured on the inside in a very elegant way, and it's quite nice. The lockup in standard Chris Reeve fashion is rather late, but it doesn't really move a whole lot. And what I love is that there is a ceramic ball bearing at the interface of the blade tang and the lock bar, so that prevents lock stick, and it will keep the knife working nicely for a very long period of time. You're not going to have the galling that goes on and the problems with the lock interface that you have with inserted titanium frame locks. So I love that upgrade. It's very, very nice, and it provides for a very nice opening and closing action. Moving back to the handles here, this is done in a nice bead blasted finish. This is of course in standard Chris Reeve fashion. It will show some snail trails, but that just shows that you're using the knife. I really do like that. The hardware is done very elegantly. It's very simple. I do appreciate that they did the pinned stop pin on this one. Some of the complaints about the 25 is that if you screw it in from both sides, you can tighten it to such an extent that it actually affected the action. So this is almost like taking that away. No matter how tight you get that, you're not going to over tighten it and affect the action. So I really do appreciate that very much. The handles are quite ergonomic, even in this smaller blade shape, even in this smaller form factor. My hands fit very nicely, my first finger there, my second finger there, and I get a full 4-finger grip even on this tiny knife. The lanyard, I will say, on the smaller ones does help. It extends the handle effectively so you can get a better grip. If I were to own one of these, I'd probably leave the lanyard on it so that I could have a little bit more grip. So I do like that. These knives are rocking the Millet Knives clips on here. These are not stock clips, so don't let this fool you. I will be doing a separate video on the Millet clips. As a matter of fact, I enjoy it so much I put it on my own knife right there. So, but the clip on the standard version is perfect. It works nicely. Another improvement that they have is that they angled the clip like this so that it doesn't rest on the lock bar, and so it doesn't affect the action in any way. So that's very nice. So what do I think of these knives? Well, I liked them so much that I ended up buying my own full-size knife. So if you're into small knives, If you're into Chris Reeve knives, these are excellent, excellent pieces. I'm super impressed with the quality and the consistency and just the effectiveness of these knives. I like these more than the Small 21. It's just a wonderful knife, so highly recommended. Tell me what you guys think down below in the comments. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my channel here. Appreciate you guys stopping by, and as always, take care.